Welcome to Story Tales. Please like this video and subscribe to Story Tales. I hope you enjoy the story. Let's begin. The forklift's hydraulic whine cut through the warehouse air as Eli Breyer guided another pallet into position. Sweat dampened his gray work shirt despite the October chill creeping through the loading dock. He checked his watch, 2:47 p.m. Another 3 hours until shift end. His phone buzzed against his hip. Unknown number with a 509 area code. Spokane. Eli Breyer. Mr. Breyer? This is Rena Voss from Riverside Elementary. We need you to come in regarding an incident with Levon. Eli's hand tightened around the phone. What kind of incident? I'd rather discuss this in person. How quickly can you get here? 20 minutes. He was already walking toward the supervisor's office. Should I call my wife? A pause. We've already tried reaching Mrs. Breyer. She said she was unavailable. Eli stopped walking. Callie had said she was unavailable? For Levon. I'll be there. He found his assistant manager, Jim, restocking inventory sheets near the break room. Family emergency. Need to leave early. Jim nodded without looking up. Hope everything's okay. Eli grabbed his jacket and keys. As he walked to his truck, he dialed Callie's number. It went straight to voicemail. He tried again. Same thing done on the third attempt, she answered. What? Her voice carried that edge it always held when he interrupted her day. The school called. Something happened with Levon. They want us both there. That's not my problem. You figure it out. The words hit him like cold water. 8 years of marriage, and she never said anything like that about their son. Never. Callie, I'm busy, Eli. Handle it yourself. The line went dead. Eli stared at the phone for 3 seconds. Then he started the truck. Fine. Riverside Elementary's main office smelled like disinfectant and copy paper. Eli pushed through the glass doors at 3:12 p.m., his work boots squeaking against the polished floor. The secretary, a thin woman with graying hair, looked up from her computer. Mr. Breyer? They're waiting in conference room B. She led him down a hallway lined with student artwork. Construction paper, turkeys, and hand tray sleeves. Normal things. Kid things. Nothing that suggested whatever had happened to his son. The conference room held 4 adults around a rectangular table. Eli recognized Mrs. Maris. Levon's teacher, a compact woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and graying brown hair, pulled back. Beside her sat a tall black man in a police uniform. Across from them, Rena Voss shuffled through a manila folder. Mr. Breyer, please sit. Rena gestured to an empty chair. This is Officer Coulter, our school resource officer. Eli shook the man's hand. Firm grip. Direct eye contact. Where's Levon? He's with the school counselor, Mrs. Maris said. Mr. Harland is making sure he's okay. What happened? Rena opened the folder. Around 1:30 this afternoon, your wife came to the school and removed Levon from class without following proper checkout procedures. When we tried to stop her, she became agitated. Agitated how? Officer Coulter leaned forward. We have security footage. Would you like to see it? Eli nodded. Rena pulled out a tablet and tapped the screen. Grainy black and white footage showed the main hallway. Timestamp read 1:34 p.m. The video showed Callie walking quickly down the hall, her heels clicking against the floor. Her face was set in hard lines. She turned into what looked like a classroom doorway. That's Mrs. Maris's room, Rena explained. The video jumped to another angle. Now Callie was pulling Levon by the hand. The boy's face was turned up toward his mother, mouth open like he was trying to say something. Callie wasn't looking at him. They moved toward what appeared to be a side exit. A man in a dress shirt and tie approached them, tall, dark hair, confident walk. That's Mr. Harland, Officer Coulter said. Our school counselor. Callie stopped. Her posture changed, shoulders back, chin lifted. She spoke to Harland for maybe 30 seconds. Even in the grainy footage, Eli could see her body language shift. Animated, almost flirtatious. Harland gestured toward Levon. Callie turned to their son and crouched down. She spoke to him for several seconds. Levon's small body seemed to shrink. He nodded once. Then Callie stood and walked out the side door. Alone, Levon remained in the hallway with Harland. The boy's shoulders shook. She left him. Eli's voice came out flat. Mr. Harlan brought him to the office, Mrs. Maris said. Levon was upset, crying. He wouldn't say what happened. Eli watched the timestamp tick forward. 1:37 p.m. 3 minutes of footage that made no sense. Where did she go? We don't know, Rena said. We tried calling you first, then her. She didn't answer. When we finally reached her an hour later, she said Levon was your responsibility. Officer Coulter cleared his throat. Mr. Breyer, has your wife been under any unusual stress lately? Financial problems? Family issues? No. Eli kept staring at the frozen screen. Levon's small figure, shoulders shaking. Nothing like that. Any changes in her behavior? Mood swings? New friends? Eli looked up. Why are you asking about new friends? Just trying to understand the situation. Coulter's expression remained neutral. Sometimes when people act out of character, there are underlying causes. Mrs. Maris leaned forward. Mr. Breyer, I've been teaching for 22 years. I've seen a lot of family situations. This felt different. Levon was genuinely frightened. Frightened of what? I don't know. But he kept asking if you were coming. Not his mother. Just you. Eli felt something cold settle in his stomach. He looked at the tablet again. Callie's animated conversation with Harlan. Her complete dismissal of Levon's distress. Can I see my son now? Of course. Rena stood. Mr. Harlan should have him ready. They walked down another hallway to a door marked Student Services. Rena knocked twice. Come in. The man from the video opened the door. Up close, Deacon Harlan was younger than Eli had expected, maybe 40, with carefully styled dark hair and an easy smile. His handshake was firm, but lasted a second too long. Mr. Breyer, I'm Deacon Harlan. I've been looking after Levon. Behind Harlan, Eli could see his son sitting in a chair that was too big for him. Levon's face lit up when he saw his father. Dad! Eli moved past Harlan and knelt beside the chair. Hey, buddy. You okay? Levon nodded, but his eyes were red. Can we go home? Absolutely. Eli stood and looked at Harlan. Thank you for watching him. Of course. Levon's a special kid. We've had some good talks. Harlan's smile never wavered. I hope Mrs. Breyer is feeling better. Feeling better. She seemed stressed when she picked him up. Family situations can be challenging. Eli studied Harlan's face. The man's expression was perfectly sympathetic, but something in his eyes felt calculating. Right? Thanks again. As they walked toward the parking lot, Levon slipped his small hand into Eli's. His son's palm was sweaty. Dad, yeah. Are you mad at Mom? Eli stopped walking. They were beside his truck now, out of earshot from the school. He crouched down to Levon's eye level. Why would I be mad at Mom? Levon's eyes darted toward the school building, then back. She said not to talk about today. She said it was between us. What was between you? I can't tell you. I promised. Eli felt that cold feeling spread through his chest. Levon, did Mom or anyone else tell you not to talk to me about something? Levon bit his lip. His eyes filled with tears. It's okay, buddy. You don't have to tell me now. But remember, you can always talk to me about anything. Always. Okay. Levon nodded and wiped his nose with his sleeve as Eli buckled his son into the truck. He caught sight of Harlan through the school's front windows. The counselor was watching them. The Breyer house sat on Elm Street in Spokane's Browns Addition neighborhood, a 1920s craftsman with a wide front porch and mature maple trees. Eli had bought it 5 years ago when warehouse supervisor money finally made a down payment possible. Callie had wanted something newer, bigger, in a development on the South Hill. But Eli liked the solid construction, the hardwood floors, the way afternoon light slanted through the living room windows that Callie's Honda was in the driveway when they pulled up. She was home. Levon ran ahead while Eli gathered his jacket and work thermos. Through the front window, he could see Callie moving around the kitchen. Normal domestic activity, like nothing had happened. Inside, the house smelled like the vanilla candles Callie burned constantly. Too sweet. Cloying. Levon, go wash your hands, Callie called from the kitchen. Dinner's almost ready. She appeared in the living room doorway, smoothing her hair. She'd changed clothes since this morning now, wearing a form-fitting sweater and jeans that looked more like going-out clothes than staying-home clothes. How was work? She asked. Eli set his thermos on the entry table. You tell me. What's that supposed to mean? You know what it means. Callie crossed her arms. If you're talking about the school thing, I already told you I was busy. I had appointments. What appointments? Since when do I have to clear my schedule with you? Eli walked into the kitchen. Levon was at the sink, standing on his step stool, carefully washing his hands. The boy's movements were deliberate, like he was trying to stay invisible. What happened at school today? Eli asked quietly. Callie followed him. Nothing happened. Levon was being dramatic. You know how sensitive he gets. Sensitive about what? He wanted to come home early. I told him no. He threw a little fit. She opened the oven and pulled out a casserole dish. Kids test boundaries. It's normal. Eli watched her move around the kitchen, efficient, controlled, like she was performing. The same way she acted at neighborhood barbecues or school events. Public Callie. The security footage shows you leaving him at school. She set the casserole down harder than necessary. Security footage? They showed you security footage? You pulled him out of class without permission. You talked to the counselor. Then you left Levon in the hallway and walked out. I don't have to explain myself to you, Eli. Or to them. When it comes to our son, yes, you do. Callie turned around. Her face had changed, the careful pleasantness replaced by something colder. Our son? When's the last time you helped with homework? When's the last time you went to a parent conference? You work 10 hours a day, come home exhausted, eat dinner, and fall asleep watching TV. Don't lecture me about being a parent. That's not. You're always so distant. What do you care now? The words came out sharp, aimed to hurt. Eli felt them hit, but didn't react. He'd learned years ago that Callie fought dirty when cornered. I care because Levon was crying in a school hallway today. I care because his teacher says he's been anxious lately. I care because my wife left our 8-year-old son at school and told them he wasn't her problem. I never said he wasn't my problem. That's exactly what you said. Callie's jaw tightened. You're twisting my words. Am I? From the sink, Levon's small voice. Are you guys fighting? Eli looked at his son. The boy's hands were still under the water, but he wasn't moving. Just standing there listening. No, buddy. We're talking. Why don't you go start your homework? Levon dried his hands and slipped past them without making eye contact. His footsteps disappeared up the stairs. When they were alone, Callie's expression shifted again. More calculated now. You want to know what really happened today? I want to pick up Levon because he called the office saying he felt sick. But when I got there, he was fine. Just wanted attention. So I told him he was staying at school, and he got upset. He called the office. That's what they told me. Eli thought about the footage. Callie pulling Levon from the classroom. The boy's face turned up toward his mother, mouth open like he was trying to explain something. Who did you talk to in the hallway? What? In the video. You talked to a man in the hallway. Callie's pause lasted a half-second too long. The counselor. He wanted to know if Levon was okay. What did you tell him? That Levon was being dramatic. Kids do that sometimes. She turned back to the stove. You're making this into something it's not. Eli watched her spoon casserole onto 3 plates. Her movements were precise, controlled, but her shoulders were tense. What did you say to Levon before you left? I told him to behave and listen to his teacher. That's all. That's all. After dinner, Eli tucked Levon into bed. The boy's room was small but cozy. Model airplanes hung from the ceiling, bookshelves lined with picture books and early readers. A nightlight shaped like a dinosaur cast green shadows on the walls. Dad. Yeah, buddy. Levon's voice came out as a whisper. Mom said not to talk about today. Eli sat on the edge of the bed. What exactly did she say? She said it was between us. She said you wouldn't understand. Understand what? Levon's eyes were wide in the dim light. I can't tell you. I promised. Levon, listen to me. If someone tells you to keep secrets from me, that's not okay. Even if it's Mom. But she said you'd be upset. I won't be upset with you. Ever. You understand. Levon nodded, but Eli could see the confusion in his son's face. 8 years old, and already being taught to keep secrets. Downstairs, Callie was loading the dishwasher. She didn't look up when Eli entered the kitchen. He's scared, Eli said. Kids get scared. It passes. Scared of what, Callie? She closed the dishwasher and turned around. Maybe he's scared because his father is acting paranoid. Maybe he's picking up on the fact that you're treating me like a criminal. I'm trying to understand what happened today. What happened is that you embarrassed our family. They showed you security footage like I'm some kind of threat. How do you think that makes me feel? Eli studied her face. The hurt expression, the defensive posture. If he didn't know better, he'd believe she was the victim here. I didn't ask to see the footage. They offered. Because you made them think something was wrong. Something is wrong. Our son is keeping secrets. You left him at school. You told me he wasn't your problem. I was upset. People say things when they're upset. Do they? Callie's eyes flashed. What's that supposed to mean? It means I've never heard you talk about Levon that way. Ever. Well, maybe you don't know me as well as you think. The words hung in the air between them. Callie seemed to realize what she'd said, because her expression softened slightly. Look, I'm sorry I snapped at you on the phone. It was a stressful day, but you're reading too much into this. Eli nodded. Maybe, but as he walked upstairs to check on Levon one more time, he was already planning. Tomorrow he'd start keeping track of things. Conversations, behaviors, times and dates, because Callie was right about one thing: he didn't know her as well as he thought, and that was going to change. The next morning, Eli dropped Levon off at school 10 minutes before the first bell. He wanted to talk to Mrs. Maris. That he found her in her classroom, arranging papers on small desks. The room smelled like crayons and hand sanitizer. Student artwork covered every wall: self-portraits, book reports, math projects. Normal third-grade chaos. Mr. Breyer, how's Levon this morning? Quiet. He didn't eat much breakfast. Mrs. Maris set down her papers. Can we talk in the hallway? They stepped outside the classroom. A few early students wandered the halls, but it was mostly empty. I've been teaching for 22 years, Mrs. Maris said. You learn to recognize when a child is struggling. What have you noticed? 3 weeks ago, Levon was a different kid. Outgoing, curious, always raising his hand. Then something changed. He stopped participating, started asking to go to the nurse's office. Yesterday wasn't the first time he seemed anxious. Eli felt his stomach tighten. Did something happen 3 weeks ago? Not that I'm aware of. But children don't usually change overnight without a reason. A tall figure approached from down the hall. Deacon Harland, carrying a coffee cup and folder. He smiled when he saw them. Morning, Mrs. Maris. Mr. Breyer, good to see you again. Mr. Harland. Eli shook the man's hand. I hope Levon's feeling better today. Sometimes family stress can manifest in school behavior. Family stress. Children are perceptive. They pick up on tension at home, changes in routine, that sort of thing. Harland's tone was professionally sympathetic. Has there been anything unusual in Levon's home environment lately? Eli studied Harland's face. The question felt pointed, probing. Like what? Oh, any number of things. Job changes, financial pressure, marital issues. Kids are like little sponges. Mrs. Maris shifted beside them. Mr. Harland, I don't think. Of course, every family goes through challenges, Harland continued. The important thing is making sure Levon feels supported. I'm always available if you need someone to talk to him. I appreciate that, Eli said. But Levon talks to me. Certainly. Though sometimes children find it easier to open up to a neutral party. Someone outside the family dynamic. Something in Harland's tone set Eli's teeth on edge. The man's words were reasonable, professional, but they felt like a sales pitch. I'll keep that in mind. Please do. Levon's a special boy. We want to make sure he gets all the support he needs. Harland walked away, his footsteps echoing down the empty hallway. I don't like him, Mrs. Maris said quietly. Eli looked at her. Why? He's been here 2 years. Every time a child has behavioral issues, he inserts himself into the situation. Always very concerned, very professional. But what? Children don't usually improve after spending time with him. If anything, they get more withdrawn. The first bell rang. Students began flooding the hallways, backpacks bouncing, voices echoing off the walls. Mrs. Maris, if you notice anything else, anything at all, will you let me know? Of course. As Eli walked toward the exit, he passed the main office. Through the glass windows, he could see Harland talking to Rena Voss. Both of them were looking at a file folder. Harland was pointing at something on the pages, speaking animatedly. Rena nodded and made notes on a legal pad. Eli paused. The folder was thick, too thick for a single incident report. Officer Coulter appeared beside him. Morning, Mr. Breyer. Officer Coulter, can I ask you something? Sure. What do you know about Harland? Coulter glanced toward the office windows, then back. Why do you ask? Just curious. Levon's been spending time with him. Look, I might want to talk bad about colleagues, Coulter said. But if I had a kid, I wouldn't want him spending one-on-one time with Harland. Why? Nothing I can prove. Just instinct. 20 years as a cop, you learn to trust your gut about people. What does your gut say about him? Coulter was quiet for a moment. That he's too interested in other people's problems, especially family problems. Through the office windows, Harlan looked up and saw them watching. He smiled and waved. Eli didn't wave back. 2 weeks passed before Eli found the phone. He'd been cleaning out the junk drawer in the kitchen, the one where random batteries, expired coupons, and broken pins accumulated like debris. Callie had gone to the grocery store, and Levon was at a friend's house for a playdate. Rare quiet in the house that could see the back of the drawer, behind a tangle of charging cables. His fingers found a small rectangular object. An old iPhone. Callie's previous phone, from before she'd upgraded 6 months ago, that he almost put it back. Almost, but something made him press the power button. The screen lit up, 12% battery remaining. She'd never wiped it. The passcode screen appeared. 4 digits. Eli tried Levon's birthday, 0314. Invalid. Their anniversary, 0627. Invalid. Callie's birthday, 1109. Invalid. He was about to give up when he remembered something. The day they'd bought the house. Callie had been obsessed with that date, checking and rechecking the paperwork, making sure everything was perfect. The phone unlocked. Eli stood in the kitchen, holding his wife's old phone, crossing a line he'd never thought he'd cross. But something was wrong in his house. Something was wrong with his son. And his wife was lying to him. That he opened the messages app. Most of the conversations were mundane grocery lists, school reminders, texts with her sister in Portland. But one contact name made him stop. Deacon. The first message was dated 6 weeks ago. Deacon. How are things at home? Callie. Complicated. Eli's been working more. I feel invisible. Deacon. You're not invisible to me. Callie. That's sweet. Thanks for listening today. Eli scrolled up. The conversation went back months. Dozens of messages, starting casual and growing more intimate. Deacon. Coffee tomorrow? I have some ideas about Levon's situation. Callie. Yes. The usual place? Deacon. Always. You know how much these talks mean to me. The usual place. They had a usual place. Eli kept reading. The messages became more personal. Callie complaining about Eli's long hours, his emotional distance. Deacon offering sympathy, understanding. Callie. Sometimes I wonder what my life would be like if I'd made different choices. Deacon. It's never too late to make new choices, Callie. Is that what you did? With your divorce? Deacon. Best decision I ever made. My ex tried to keep me from my daughter, but I fought for what I deserved. Callie. How did you fight? Deacon. Documented everything. Her drinking, her mood swings, the way she talked to our daughter. Courts don't like unstable mothers. Callie. Wow. You're stronger than I am. Deacon. You're stronger than you think. When you're ready to fight for what you deserve, I'll help you. Eli's hands were shaking now. He scrolled faster, finding more recent messages. Callie. Eli's getting suspicious. He keeps asking about yesterday. Deacon. What did you tell him? Callie. That Levon was being dramatic. Think you bought it? Deacon. Doesn't matter. We're building a case. Every incident helps. Callie. A case for what? Deacon. Full custody. Child support. A fresh start. Callie. What about Levon? He loves his father. Deacon. Kids adapt. Especially when they see their mother happy for the first time. Callie. And you think I'll be happy? Deacon. With me? I guarantee it. The messages continued. Plans to document Eli's emotional distance. Strategies to position Callie as the primary caregiver. Discussions about Eli's work schedule, his personality, his relationship with Levon. Deacon. Once the CPS report is filed, he'll fold. They always do. Callie. You really think so? Deacon. I've seen it dozens of times. Men like Eli, blue-collar, traditional, prideful, they can't handle public scrutiny. He'll agree to whatever keeps his name out of the system. Callie. He's stubborn, but I'll break him. Deacon. We'll break him. Together. Eli read that exchange 3 times. We'll break him. Together, there were photos. Callie in Deacon's office, sitting close together. Callie in what looked like a restaurant, smiling at someone across the table. The angle suggested Deacon had taken the picture. The most recent message was from yesterday. Deacon, Phase 2 starts next week. You ready? Callie, what's Phase 2? Deacon, Levon needs to start opening up about problems at home. I'll work with him during our sessions. Callie, sessions? Deacon, I've recommended weekly counseling for his anxiety. Rena already approved it. Callie, what will you tell him to say? Deacon, nothing dramatic. Just that daddy gets angry sometimes. That mommy seems sad. Small things that build a pattern. Callie, and if Eli objects? Deacon, what loving father objects to counseling for his anxious child? Eli set the phone down on the kitchen counter. His hands were steady now. The shaking had stopped, replaced by something colder as he walked to his home office, a converted bedroom where he kept important papers. From the filing cabinet, he pulled out a legal pad and began writing date. Time. Location where phone was found. Summary of conversations. Then he connected the phone to his computer and began copying files. Screenshots of every message, every photo, timestamps, and contact information. When he finished, he put the phone back exactly where he'd found it. Then he called in sick to work. 3 days later, Mrs. Maris asked Eli to stay after pickup. Levon was in the bathroom, so they had a few minutes alone in the empty classroom. Mrs. Maris closed the door and pulled 2 chairs together. Something happened today, she said. Eli felt his stomach drop. What? Levon came to me during recess. He was upset. He said he needed to tell me something, but he wasn't supposed to. What did he say? Mrs. Maris pulled out a small notebook. I wrote down his exact words. He said, Mom told me that if I tell anyone about our talks, Daddy will go to jail. The words hit Eli like ice water. Their talks. I asked him what talks. He said he couldn't tell me because it was a secret. But then he said, Mr. Harlan says Daddy gets angry, but I don't think he does. Harlan is having talks with my son. Apparently. Weekly sessions. For his anxiety. I never approved any sessions. Mrs. Maris looked confused. But the paperwork was signed. I saw it myself. By who? Your wife. Last Monday. Eli tried to keep his expression neutral, but rage was building in his chest. What else did Levon say? He asked me if I thought you were mean. I told him absolutely not. He seemed relieved, but then he got scared again. He said he wasn't supposed to talk about you with anyone except Mr. Harlan. Where is he now? Levon. Bathroom. But Mr. Breyer, there's something else. Mrs. Maris looked toward the door, then back. I think someone's been coaching him. The things he says about home situations, they sound rehearsed. Like he's repeating phrases he's heard. What kind of phrases? Yesterday, he told me he was worried about you because you seem stressed all the time. Those aren't words an 8-year-old would use. And when I asked him what made him think that, he couldn't explain it. Eli stood up. I need to talk to my son. Mr. Breyer, wait. There's more. He sat back down. Officer Coulter has been asking questions about Mr. Harlan. Quietly. Apparently, other parents have had concerns. What kind of concerns? Children becoming more withdrawn after sessions with him. Families with sudden problems that seem to appear out of nowhere. Messy custody situations where Harlan ends up being the key witness. The bathroom door opened down the hall. Small footsteps approached. Don't let Levon know we talked about this, Mrs. Maris whispered. But please be careful. Something isn't right. Levon appeared in the doorway, backpack over his shoulder. His face lit up when he saw his father. Ready to go, buddy? Yeah. Can we get ice cream? Sure. As they walked to the truck, Eli's mind was racing. Callie had signed paperwork for counseling sessions. Sessions designed to coach Levon into saying things about him. Sessions meant to build a case. Dad, yeah. Do I have to keep seeing Mr. Harlan? Eli stopped walking. Why do you ask? I don't like talking to him. He asks weird questions. What kind of questions? Levon looked around the parking lot, then back at his father. About you. About if you get mad. About if Mom seems sad. What do you tell him? I tell him you don't get mad. But he keeps asking. Eli knelt down beside the truck. Levon, listen to me. You never have to answer questions that make you uncomfortable. Even if a grown-up asks them. Even if it's someone from school. But Mr. Harlan says I have to talk about my feelings. You can talk about your feelings with me, or with Mom, or with Mrs. Maris. You don't have to talk to Mr. Harland if you don't want to. Really? Really? Relief washed over Levon's face. Good. It makes me feel weird. That night, after Levon was in bed, Eli confronted Callie about the counseling sessions. You signed paperwork for Levon to see the school counselor. She was folding laundry in the living room, her movements sharp and efficient. He's been anxious. I thought it would help. You didn't discuss it with me. Since when do I need permission to get help for our son? Since always. We make decisions about Levon together. Callie slammed a t-shirt down on the coffee table. Do we? Because most of the time, you're not here. I'm the one dealing with his problems. What problems? His anxiety. His questions about why you work so much. His worries about us fighting. We don't fight. Not in front of him. We're fighting right now. Eli studied her face. The defensive anger. The way she'd turned the conversation back on him. Classic Callie, but more calculated than usual. What does Harlan think about Levon's anxiety? He thinks it's environmental. Something at home is making Levon nervous. Something at home like what? Like having a father who's never here. Like having parents who don't communicate. Did Harlan tell you that? He doesn't have to. It's obvious. Eli walked to the window and looked out at the street. Tori Finch was bringing in her garbage cans from the curb. Normal suburban evening. Normal neighborhood activities. Nothing about his life felt normal anymore. I want to meet with Harlan, he said. Why? Because he's counseling my son, and I want to know what they talk about. You don't trust me to handle it. I don't trust him. Callie's expression changed. Surprise, then something that looked like panic. Why would you say that? Because something feels wrong, Callie. Everything feels wrong. She stood up, scattering folded clothes. You're being paranoid. Am I? Yes. And it's exactly the kind of behavior that worries Levon. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. Forget it. But Eli didn't forget. He went upstairs and added the conversation to his legal pad. Time, date, exact quotes. The case against him was being built one conversation at a time. But now he was building case two. Saturday morning, Eli was washing his truck in the driveway when Tori Finch approached from next door. She was wearing gardening gloves and carrying a small shovel, her gray hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. Morning, Eli. Morning, Tori. She walked to the fence line between their properties and began digging around a rose bush. But her movements seemed distracted. Can I ask you something? She said after a few minutes. Sure. Is everything okay with Callie? Eli set down his sponge. Why do you ask? Because I've been noticing things. Living alone, you notice things. What kind of things? Tori looked toward the Breyer house, then back. She's been having a lot of visitors lately. During the day, when you're at work. Visitors, a man, drives a dark blue sedan. He's been here 3 times this week. Eli felt his pulse quicken. What does he look like? Tall, dark hair, well-dressed. Professional looking. Deacon. How long does he stay? Usually about an hour. Sometimes she goes outside and gets in his car. They'll sit there talking for maybe 20 minutes, then he drives away. Did you see them yesterday? Thursday, around 2 o'clock. She seemed upset when she came back inside. Thursday, the day after Eli had found the phone. Tori, can I ask you a favor? She set down her shovel. Of course. If you see that car again, could you let me know? Maybe take a picture of the license plate. Are you in some kind of trouble? Eli looked at his neighbor. Tori had lived on Elm Street for 15 years, since before her husband died. She was quiet, observant, and minded her own business. But she was also fiercely protective of the neighborhood. I think so, but I can't prove it yet. What do you need me to do? Eli pulled out his phone and gave her his number. Just text me if you see anything. Times, dates, how long they stay. Done. That afternoon, while Callie was grocery shopping and Levon was playing in the backyard, Eli's phone buzzed. Text from Tori. Dark sedan, just pulled up. She's going outside. Eli moved to the living room window. Through the curtains, he could see Callie walking toward a car parked across the street. Dark blue sedan, just like Tori had described. Callie got into the passenger seat. From his angle, Eli couldn't see the driver clearly, but the build looked right for Deacon. They sat in the car for 25 minutes. Eli could see Callie's silhouette, animated, gesturing with her hands. Whatever they were discussing was intense. When she got out, her face was flushed. She smoothed her hair and walked back to the house like nothing had happened. Eli was in the kitchen when she came through the front door. How was shopping? Fine. Traffic was terrible. She set grocery bags on the counter and began unpacking. Her movements were quick, distracted. Forget anything. What? You were gone for 2 hours. Seems like a long time for groceries. I stopped at the bank and the pharmacy. She didn't look at him while she spoke. Is that okay with you? Of course. Just curious. But when Eli checked the grocery receipt later, the timestamp showed she'd only been in the store for 43 minutes. That evening, his phone buzzed again. Text from Tori. Want to talk? I'm on my front porch. Eli told Callie he was checking the mail and walked outside. Tori was sitting on her porch swing, a cup of tea in her hands. I got the license plate number, she said quietly. She handed him a piece of paper. The number was written in careful handwriting. Thank you. Eli, I don't know what's going on, but I want you to know if you need help, if you need someone to watch Leave On or witness something, I'm here. Why? Because I've seen this before. My cousin went through something similar 15 years ago. His wife, her boyfriend, a custody scheme. It nearly destroyed him. What happened? He figured it out too late. Lost his kids for 2 years while the courts sorted it out. By the time he got them back, they'd been poisoned against him. Eli felt something cold settle in his stomach. How did he fight it? Documentation, evidence, witnesses, and a good lawyer. Did he win? Eventually. But it cost him everything: his house, his savings, his relationship with his kids. Even when the truth came out, the damage was done. Tori sipped her tea and looked toward the Breyer house. Don't let that happen to you. Monday morning, Eli called in sick to work again. He had research to do. First, he ran the license plate number through an online database. The car was registered to Deacon Andrew Harland. Address, 1247 Riverside Avenue, Spokane. Next, he researched Harland himself. LinkedIn profile showed 2 years at Riverside Elementary, 3 years at a middle school in Coeur d'Alene before that. Before education, he'd worked in social services. Eli dug deeper. Public records showed Harland had been divorced 3 years ago. His ex-wife had filed for a restraining order during the proceedings, claiming harassment and emotional manipulation. The restraining order had been dropped as part of the settlement. More concerning, 2 families in Coeur d'Alene had filed complaints against Harland during his time at the middle school. Both complaints involved inappropriate counseling methods and overstepping professional boundaries. No formal action had been taken. Eli printed everything. Then he drove to Riverside Elementary. He found Officer Coulter in the main hallway, talking to a group of 5th graders about bicycle safety. Officer Coulter, could I speak with you privately? Sure. Give me 5 minutes. When the students dispersed, Coulter led Eli to an empty classroom. What's on your mind? Deacon Harland. Coulter's expression sharpened. What about him? I think he's been manipulating my son. And my wife. That's a serious accusation. I have evidence. Eli pulled out his phone and showed Coulter screenshots of the text messages between Callie and Deacon. He watched the officer's face change as he read. Where did you get these? My wife's old phone. She forgot to wipe it. This shows an inappropriate relationship between a school employee and a parent. It also suggests they're coaching your son to make false statements. What can you do about it? Coulter was quiet for a moment. Officially? Not much yet. These messages don't prove criminal activity, but they do violate school policy and professional ethics. And unofficially, I've been watching Harland for months. Other parents have raised concerns. This gives me ammunition to open a formal investigation. What do you need from me? Copies of everything. And keep documenting. Every conversation, every incident, every contact between your family and Harland. I've been doing that. Good. Also, you mentioned your neighbor has been taking photos. Of Harland's car, yes. Get copies of those too. We need to establish a pattern of contact outside normal school functions. Eli nodded. What about my son? How do I protect him from their sessions? Legally, you can refuse counseling services. As the father, you have that right. What if Callie objects? Then it becomes a custody issue. But if you can prove the counseling is harmful or manipulative, the courts will side with you. They walked toward the main office. Through the glass windows, Eli could see Harland at his desk, talking on the phone. The man looked up and saw them watching. His expression flickered surprise, then calculation. He knows, Coulter said quietly. Knows what? That we're onto him. Look at his body language. Harland was sitting straighter now, his conversation more animated. He was positioning himself so they couldn't see his computer screen. What does that mean? It means things are about to escalate. If he thinks his plan is in danger, he'll accelerate the timeline. How? He'll push for a crisis. Something that forces CPS involvement or emergency custody proceedings. Eli felt his stomach tighten. What kind of crisis? False allegations, claims of abuse or neglect, manufactured incidents that make you look unstable. How do I stop it? By beating him to the punch. That afternoon, Eli gathered everything he had, screenshots of text messages, photos of Harland's car at his house, documentation of unauthorized counseling sessions, public records about Harland's past employment issues that he made 3 sets of copies. The first set went to the school district superintendent, along with a formal complaint about Harland's conduct. The second set went to the state licensing board for professional counselors. The third set he kept for himself. Then he sent an anonymous email to every parent in Levon's class. Parents should be aware that school counselor Deacon Harland has been conducting unauthorized counseling sessions with students and maintaining inappropriate contact with families outside school hours. Please monitor your children's interactions with this individual and report any concerns to the administration. He sent it from a public library computer using a disposable email account. By evening, his phone was ringing. Mr. Breyer? This is Principal Anderson. We need to meet tomorrow morning. Please bring your attorney. The meeting was scheduled for 8 a.m. in the principal's conference room. Eli arrived 10 minutes early, wearing his best suit and carrying a leather folder containing copies of all his evidence. Principal Anderson was a thin woman in her 50s with gray hair and wire-rimmed glasses. She sat at the head of the table with Superintendent Williams, a heavy-set man with careful eyes. Across from them sat Deacon Harland and a woman Eli didn't recognize, presumably the district's attorney. Mr. Breyer, please sit down. Eli took the chair, facing them all. We understand you've made some serious allegations against Mr. Harland, Principal Anderson began. I've documented inappropriate contact between Mr. Harland and my family. I've also discovered that my son has been receiving unauthorized counseling. Harland leaned forward. Mr. Breyer, I understand your concern about Levon's emotional well-being, but the counseling sessions were approved by your wife, and they've been helping him process his anxiety about the home situation. What home situation? The tension between you and Mrs. Breyer. The long work hours. Levon has expressed feeling caught in the middle of parental conflict. Eli opened his folder and pulled out the printed text messages. Is that why you've been meeting my wife at my house? To discuss my son's anxiety. The room went quiet. Harland's easy confidence faltered. I'm not sure what you're implying. I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. Eli handed copies of the messages to Principal Anderson and Superintendent Williams. Their expressions changed as they read. These appear to show personal communications between you and Mrs. Breyer, Williams said to Harland. Mrs. Breyer was seeking guidance about her son's behavioral issues. Sometimes parents need support outside regular school hours. Do you typically tell parents that their husbands will fold when CPS reports are filed? Harland's face went pale. I think there's been a misunderstanding. Do you typically help parents develop strategies to break their spouses? The district attorney was reading over Williams's shoulder now, her expression growing more serious. Mr. Harland, Anderson said, these communications suggest you've been involved in personal family matters well beyond your professional scope. I was trying to help a struggling family by encouraging the mother to file false reports with Child Protective Services. Eli pulled out more documents. I've also discovered that Mr. Harland has a history of similar behavior at his previous employment. 2 families in Coeur d'Alene filed complaints about inappropriate counseling methods. He handed over the public records about Harland's past issues. Williams set down the papers. Mr. Harland, you're suspended pending a full investigation. Please clear out your office. You can't do this based on out-of-context text messages. We can and we are. Security will escort you out. As Harland left the room, escorted by 2 district security officers, Principal Anderson turned to Eli. "Mr. Breyer, we owe you an apology. This situation should never have been allowed to develop. What about my son? How do we make sure he's okay? We'll arrange for him to meet with a different counselor, someone from outside the district, and we'll be reviewing all of Mr. Harlan's previous cases." Eli drove home feeling like he'd won the first battle. But the war wasn't over. That afternoon, Callie filed for legal separation and full custody of Levon. The court papers were delivered to his work by a sheriff's deputy. Eli read them in the warehouse break room, surrounded by the noise of forklifts and machinery. According to the filing, Eli was emotionally unstable and a potential threat to the minor child. The petition cited his obsessive behavior, his paranoid accusations against school staff, and his inability to maintain stable employment due to frequent absences. Callie was requesting immediate temporary custody, supervised visitation for Eli, and a restraining order preventing him from contacting school personnel. The hearing was scheduled for Friday. 3 days away. The bottom of the petition was a witness list. Deacon Harlan was listed as a character witness for Callie. Even suspended from his job, he was still part of her plan. Eli called his attorney from the parking lot. "Mr. Breyer, this is quite a development. Can she do this? Can she file for custody based on false accusations?" "She can file. Whether she'll win is another matter." "Do you have evidence to counter her claims?" "I have evidence that she's been planning this for months, that she and Harlan have been manipulating my son and setting me up." "Good. Bring everything to my office tomorrow morning. We'll prepare our response." "What about Levon? What if she tries to take him before the hearing?" "The current custody arrangement remains in place until the court rules otherwise. But Mr. Breyer, be very careful about your behavior between now and Friday. Don't give them any ammunition." That evening, Eli picked up Levon from school as usual. The boy seemed lighter somehow, less anxious. "Dad," Mrs. Maris said, "I don't have to see Mr. Harlan anymore." "That's right. How do you feel about that?" "Good. He made me feel weird." As they drove home, Eli's phone buzzed with a text from Tori. "Callie had boxes in her car when she left this morning. Suitcases, too. Thought you should know." Eli's stomach dropped. "Levon, did Mom say anything about taking a trip?" "She said we might go visit Aunt Sarah for a while. Callie's sister lived in Oregon. If she took Levon there, it would complicate everything." "When did she say that?" "This morning. She said to pack some clothes, but not to tell you because it was a surprise." Eli pulled into their driveway. Callie's car wasn't there. Inside, he could see evidence of hurried packing. Drawers left open, hangers scattered on the bed. Levon's toy box had been emptied. His phone rang. "Callie." "Hi, Eli. I'm at my sister's with Levon. We need some space to think. Bring him home." "I don't think that's best right now. You've been acting erratic lately. I think Levon needs stability." "Callie, if you don't bring him home tonight, I'm calling the police." "You do what you think is best. But I'm protecting my son." The line went dead. Eli called his attorney. "She can't do this, can she?" "Technically, no. The current custody arrangement is still in effect. But if she claims she feared for the child's safety, it becomes more complicated." "What do I do?" "File an emergency motion tomorrow morning. Demand immediate return of the child. And document everything, the fact that she left with packed bags, that she'd been planning this, that Levon mentioned it was supposed to be a surprise." "Will that work?" "If you can prove this was premeditated rather than a fear-based response, yes." The court doesn't like parental kidnapping. Eli spent that night alone in his house, preparing for war. The courthouse on Friday morning was cold and sterile. Eli sat at a rectangular table beside his attorney, James Morrison, a sharp-eyed man in his 50s who specialized in family law. Across the aisle, Callie sat with her attorney, a younger woman with blonde hair and an expensive suit. Deacon Harlan sat in the gallery behind Callie, wearing a dark suit and a sympathetic expression. Despite being suspended from his job, he was here to testify as a character witness. Judge Patricia Hayes entered the courtroom at 9 a.m. sharp. She was a stern woman in her 60s with gray hair and piercing eyes. Eli had researched her background 20 years on the family court bench, known for no-nonsense rulings and intolerance for games. "This is an emergency hearing regarding temporary custody of Levon Breyer, age 8, Judge Hayes began. Mrs. Breyer, you filed for immediate temporary custody. Please present your case. Callie's attorney stood. Your Honor, Mrs. Breyer fears for her son's safety due to her husband's increasingly erratic behavior. Mr. Breyer has been making paranoid accusations against school staff, missing work frequently, and showing signs of emotional instability. What evidence do you have of this alleged instability? We have testimony from school personnel about Mr. Breyer's confrontational behavior. We also have witness statements about his obsessive documentation of family activities and his inappropriate accusations against a respected school counselor. Judge Hayes looked at Eli. Mr. Breyer, how do you respond? Morrison stood. Your Honor, Mr. Breyer's so-called erratic behavior was actually careful investigation of a scheme to manipulate his family and destroy his relationship with his son. We have extensive evidence that Mrs. Breyer and the school counselor have been planning to remove Levon from his father's custody through false allegations and manufactured crises. That's quite an accusation, Mr. Morrison. What evidence do you have? Morrison opened his briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. Text messages between Mrs. Breyer and Mr. Harland showing months of planning. Documentation of unauthorized counseling sessions designed to coach the child into making false statements about his father. Photographic evidence of secret meetings between Mrs. Breyer and Mr. Harland. He handed copies to Judge Hayes and Callie's attorney. Your Honor, Callie's attorney interjected. These alleged text messages were obtained illegally. From Mrs. Breyer's own phone, which was in the family home, Morrison countered. Perfectly legal for a spouse to access. Judge Hayes spent several minutes reading through the documents. Her expression grew more serious with each page. Mrs. Breyer, did you have a personal relationship with Mr. Harlan outside of school functions? Callie's face flushed. We discussed Levon's educational needs. These messages suggest discussions that went well beyond educational needs. They reference plans to break your husband and file CPS reports. That's taken out of context. Mr. Harland, Judge Hayes addressed Deacon directly. You're here as a character witness despite being suspended from your position for professional misconduct? Harland stood. Your Honor, I was trying to help a family in crisis. Sometimes that requires going beyond normal protocols. It requires maintaining appropriate professional boundaries, which you clearly failed to do. Judge Hayes looked back at the documents. Mrs. Breyer, why did you leave the state with Levon without notifying your husband? I feared for our safety. Morrison stood again. Your Honor, Mrs. Breyer packed bags and planned this departure days in advance. This wasn't a fear-based decision. It was part of the coordinated plan described in her text messages. How do you know she packed in advance? Neighbor testimony. Mrs. Torrey Finch observed Mrs. Breyer loading suitcases in her car on Wednesday morning 2 days before she claimed to suddenly fear for her safety. Judge Hayes made notes on her legal pad. I want to hear from the child. Is Levon available? He's with my sister in Portland, Callie said. Bring him back. Today. This hearing will resume on Monday with Levon present for an in-camera interview. Your Honor, traveling might be traumatic for him. Mrs. Breyer, you removed the child from his home and school without court approval. The trauma has already occurred. Bring him back. Judge Hayes looked at both parties. In the meantime, I'm ordering that Levon be returned to the family home in Spokane. Mr. Breyer will have primary physical custody pending resolution of this matter. Mrs. Breyer will have supervised visitation. Callie's attorney shot to her feet. Your Honor, that's exactly what we're trying to prevent, based on allegations that appear to be fabricated. This court does not look kindly on parental alienation or false accusations designed to manipulate custody arrangements. As I left the courthouse, Morrison pulled Eli aside. That went better than expected, but this isn't over. They'll regroup and come back with new strategies. What kind of strategies? Character assassination. They'll try to find real problems in your life to focus on instead of their manufactured ones. There aren't any real problems. Everyone has something, Mr. Breyer. Financial issues, past mistakes, personality flaws. They'll find whatever they can and magnify it. That afternoon, Eli picked up Levon from the Portland airport. His son looked tired and confused, clutching a small backpack. Dad, am I in trouble? No, buddy. You're not in trouble at all. Why do we have to go to Aunt Sarah's? Mom said you were sick. I'm not sick. Mom was just confused about some things. As they drove home, Levon was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. Dad, I told Aunt Sarah what Mr. Harlan asked me to say about you. Eli felt his pulse quicken. What did you tell her? That he wanted me to say you get angry and yell. But I told Aunt Sarah that's not true. You never yell. What did Aunt Sarah say? She said I should always tell the truth, even if grown-ups tell me not to. Eli reached over and squeezed his son's hand. Aunt Sarah's right. You should always tell the truth, even if it makes Mom sad. Even then, by Monday morning, news of Harlan's suspension had spread throughout the school community. Eli's anonymous email had been forwarded and re-forwarded until most parents in the district had seen it. Other stories began emerging. The Martinez family came forward with concerns about their daughter's sessions with Harlan. 7-year-old Sophia had become withdrawn and anxious after meeting with the counselor, claiming he asked weird questions about her parents' marriage. The Johnsons reported that their son had been coached to express concerns about his father's anger issues, despite the fact that Robert Johnson was known throughout the community as one of the most mild-mannered men alive. 3 more families revealed that Harlan had suggested their children needed ongoing counseling for various manufactured problems, always with a focus on fathers who were emotionally distant or potentially unstable. A pattern emerged. Harlan targeted families with working-class fathers and stay-at-home or part-time working mothers. He positioned himself as a supportive figure for the mothers while systematically undermining the fathers' relationships with their children. Principal Anderson called an emergency parent meeting for Wednesday evening. The school's multipurpose room was packed with concerned families. We want to assure everyone that Mr. Harlan's employment with the district has been terminated, Anderson announced. We're reviewing all cases he was involved with and offering alternative counseling services for any affected children. A mother near the front raised her hand. How did this go on for so long without anyone noticing? We're conducting a full investigation into our oversight procedures. We clearly failed to identify inappropriate behavior that should have been stopped. What about liability? Another parent asked. If our children were manipulated or coached to make false statements, what recourse do we have? The district's attorney stepped forward. We're prepared to work with affected families to address any damages that may have resulted from Mr. Harlan's actions. After the meeting, several parents approached Eli. Thank you for speaking up, said Maria Martinez. If you hadn't exposed this, Sophia might have spent months being manipulated. Robert Johnson shook Eli's hand. I don't know how you figured it out, but you probably saved a lot of families from going through hell. But not everyone was supportive. A small group of parents remained loyal to Harlan, convinced that he was being scapegoated. They whispered that Eli was vindictive, that he destroyed a good man's career over personal problems. Callie was part of that group, that on Thursday, she appeared on a local news program, tearfully defending Harlan and claiming that her husband's obsessive behavior had ruined an innocent man's life. Deacon was trying to help families, she said, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. He cared about children, and now his reputation is destroyed because my husband couldn't handle the idea that our son might need counseling. The interviewer pressed her on the text messages. But the messages show you and Mr. Harlan planning to manipulate custody proceedings. Those messages were taken out of context. We were discussing legitimate concerns about Levon's emotional well-being. Messages that reference breaking your husband and filing false CPS reports. I was emotional. I was scared. People say things they don't mean when they're trying to protect their children. Eli watched the interview from his living room, Levon playing with toy cars on the floor beside him. His son looked up during Callie's tearful performance. Why is Mom crying on TV? She's upset about some things that happened. Is she upset with me? No, buddy. She's not upset with you. But Eli could see the confusion in his son's eyes. 8 years old, and already learning that the adults in his life weren't always truthful, the interview backfired. Instead of generating sympathy for Callie and Harlan, it prompted more parents to come forward with their own stories. The local news station ran a follow-up story featuring interviews with affected families, but by Friday, Harlan's professional reputation was in ruins. The state licensing board opened a formal investigation that would likely result in the permanent revocation of his counseling license. More importantly for Eli's case, public opinion had shifted decisively in his favor. The community now understood that Callie and Harland had been the manipulators, not Eli. 6 months later, after the divorce was finalized and Eli had been awarded sole custody, he made his final move that he'd spent those months quietly building an even stronger case against Harland. Working with a private investigator, he'd uncovered evidence that Harland's behavior at Riverside Elementary was part of a larger pattern going back years. In Colorado, before his time in Idaho, Harland had been quietly dismissed from a school district after allegations of inappropriate relationships with parents. In Montana, before Colorado, he'd left another position under suspicious circumstances. Always the same pattern: targeting vulnerable families, positioning himself as a supportive figure for struggling mothers, systematically undermining fathers, and pushing for custody changes that benefited his romantic interests. Eli compiled everything into a comprehensive dossier. Screenshots of text messages, audio recordings of Levon describing his sessions with Harland, witness statements from neighbors about secret meetings, documentation of Harland's history of professional misconduct across multiple states. Then he mailed copies to 3 recipients: the investigative reporters at the Spokane newspaper who had been following the story, the attorneys representing other families who were considering civil action against Harland, the FBI's field office in Spokane, with a cover letter suggesting that Harland's pattern of behavior across multiple states might constitute federal crimes. The newspaper ran a 3-part series, exposing Harland's history and the school district's failure to properly vet employees. The series won a regional journalism award and prompted policy changes in how school districts conduct background checks. The FBI investigation led to federal charges against Harland for using electronic communications to further a scheme to defraud families through false custody claims. He pleaded guilty and received a 2-year prison sentence. But Eli's most satisfying victory was the civil lawsuit. Working with attorneys representing 6 affected families, Eli filed a massive civil suit against Harland for intentional infliction of emotional distress, fraud, and interference with parental rights. The suit also named the school district for negligent hiring and supervision that Harland's defense was weak. His attorneys tried to argue that he'd been attempting to help troubled families, but the evidence was overwhelming. Text messages showing premeditation, multiple victims across several states, a clear pattern of predatory behavior. The case never went to trial. Faced with a mountain of evidence, Harland's insurance company settled for $850,000 to be divided among the affected families. Eli's share was $200,000. He used part of it to pay his legal fees and put the rest into a college fund for Levon. But the money wasn't the point. The point was making sure Harland could never do this to another family. 2 years after the custody hearing, Eli stood with Levon on a hill overlooking Spokane. They'd hiked up to the Centennial Trail overlook on a crisp October afternoon. The city spread out below them, the Spokane River winding through downtown like a silver ribbon. Levon was 10 now, taller and more confident. The anxiety that had marked his 8-year-old face was gone, replaced by the natural curiosity of a healthy child. "Dad, can we get ice cream after this?" "Sure, buddy. The kind with the gummy bears, if that's what you want." Levon grinned and ran ahead on the trail, his voice echoing off the hillsides. He called back observations about birds and clouds and interesting rocks. Tori Finch had become more than a neighbor. She was family now. She watched Levon after school while Eli worked, helped with homework, attended parent conferences when Eli couldn't. The 3 of them had dinner together most Sunday nights. She's like a grandmother to him, Eli had told Morrison during one of their final legal meetings. The stability he needs. Mrs. Maris had retired the previous spring, but she still sent Levon birthday cards and Christmas presents. "You saved that boy," she'd told Eli at her retirement party. Not just from them, but from what he might have become if he'd grown up believing lies about his father. Callie lived in Portland now, working as a receptionist at a medical clinic. She had no custody rights, no visitation rights, no legal relationship with Levon at all. The court had terminated her parental rights after she violated the supervised visitation order by attempting to take Levon to see Harlan in prison. She sent Christmas cards every year, generic cards with her name printed inside. No personal messages. Levon usually looked at them for a few seconds, then threw them away. Does it make you sad that Mom doesn't live here anymore? Eli had asked him once. Sometimes, Levon had answered, but I like our life better now. Eli understood what his son meant. Their life was quieter now, more peaceful. No walking on eggshells, no hidden tensions, no secrets. Just a father and son figuring things out together. With the overlook, Levon sat on a bench and pulled out the drawing pad Eli had bought him for his birthday. He was sketching the cityscape below, his tongue poking out slightly in concentration. Dad, yeah. Remember when I used to have to talk to Mr. Harlan? I remember. I'm glad I don't have to do that anymore. Me too. He made me feel like something was wrong with our family. But there wasn't anything wrong, was there? Eli sat beside his son on the bench. No, buddy. There wasn't anything wrong. Good. I like our family the way it is now. Levon returned to his drawing. After a few minutes, he held it up for Eli to see. It was a simple sketch of the city below, but he'd added 2 stick figures standing on a hill, a tall one and a short one, side by side. That's us, Levon explained unnecessarily. It's perfect. As they walked back down the trail, Eli's phone buzzed with a text message. Morrison, his attorney. Harlan was denied parole. Hill served the full sentence. Thought you'd want to know. Eli deleted the message without responding. Harlan was no longer his concern. The man had been neutralized, his ability to hurt other families eliminated. Sometimes justice was swift and decisive. Sometimes it took patience, planning, and precision. But it always came if you were willing to fight for it. Dad, race you to the car. Levon took off, running down the trail, his laughter echoing through the trees. Eli followed, watching his son's carefree sprint, knowing that this normal, joyful moment was what he'd really been fighting for all along. They tried to burn his home down from the inside, but he'd rebuilt the fire to burn them instead.